Howdy everyone, today's topic is about the Fleet Combat Buff project. Many people don't know what this is, how to get it, or why it's important. So first up, getting straight down into it, what is the Combat Buff? The Combat Buff is a project from the Fleet Research Lab that gives you plus 20% all damage on space and ground. Now, this is Cat 1, or base damage, but it's still significant, which we'll get to here in a few. Plus 40 all damage resistance rating on ground and space. Plus 10% speed and turn rate in space. And 10% run speed and dodge on the ground. So, those are some pretty nice buffs. Now, where can you get this? Well, as you can see, I'm looking at the fleet window, the research lab upgrade slot. Now, there's 3 projects that are available to your fleet to slot when you build up your tiers in the research lab. I'm in a fully completed research lab, so I'm viewing the tier 3 ones. The tier 2 ones are 75% of the values of this one, and the tier 1 are half of the value of these ones you're seeing right now. The 2 other options other than the combat buff are the Dilithium Ore boost, which means you're getting 10% bonus still, so like a contraband project would give you 2,200 dill instead of 2,000. And the other one is a 5% XP buff, which is not really that significant. Now, one of the things that prevents many people from running these and really makes you not want to run the dill buff or the XP buff is the cost. Now, most of this won't look bad, but 200,000 XP, that's easy. 15,000 lithium, that's pretty easy. I mean, this is a project open to your entire fleet, so I think you guys can muster, 15,000 dill. 200,000 fleet credits. That is the killer right there. That's 200,000 of your hard-earned fleet credits that are required from anyone in your fleet to, just get this thing rolling, and it only lasts for 5 days. So to keep this thing running for an entire month, you need 1.2 million fleet credits thrown at it from people in your fleet. That keeps many smaller fleets from doing this, but it's not typically an issue in the larger fleets. I mean, myself, I can go and fill this infinitely, basically, but not many have that luxury. And then 341 fleet marks, so that's not really an issue. Now, I believe I mentioned this already, but I'll just say it again. You can only have one of these up at a time. So if someone goes and slots like the dill buff, there's no way to unslot it. You gotta fill it and you gotta wait 5 days. Which is a pain because that locks you out of those nice buffs. And now I'm going to go to my final point here. What makes this so important? Whether or not you're a DPS player, PvPer, whatever, these are still some very valuable buffs that will actually impact your gameplay compared to the other minor buffs that you can pick up here. The resistance part is the most important to me. Running the combat buff has allowed myself and many others to completely drop resistance in our skill tree. We don't run resistance consoles anymore, even on the threat builds going to the center of Hive Space Elite, where that is the most damage you will see basically anywhere in the game. We're not running any resistance consoles. We're not running any resistance in the skill tree because of this. And some of the other resistance you get from abilities. But this is the big thing. Okay? Now, I'm going to compare some numbers here. I'm on a character that's in a different fleet. I don't play this character much, so they don't have a combat buff up right now. but you see my kinetic resist is 19.6. Now, the reason it's 19.6 is because the Iconian deflector gives me some kinetic damage resistance. The Iconian engines give me some energy resistance when I'm at full throttle, but I'm not at full throttle most of the time, so I'm not going to include that in this comparison. And I have removed anchored and tried to make the builds comparable as much as I can. But now we see the resistance to most energy weapons is 4.3%. The only reason Polaron is at 2.4 is because I haven't earned the Polaron accolade from fighting enemies that use Polaron enough, because I'm lazy and I don't play this character because I have too many other characters and I have better things to do in life. So let's compare that now to another character. The kinetic resistance went from 19.6 to 38.3%. That's almost double what it was. Now, you have to remember, even though it's plus 40 all damage resistance rating, there are diminishing returns with resistance, but this is still significant. Now, if we get to the energy weapons, we went from 4.3% to 30.4%, just from the combat buff. And if you start hitting abilities, hazard emitters, I don't have Ox to Sif on, but you get the idea. You start to get up there. I mean, you just don't need the resistance consoles. You don't need the points in the skill tree for it, because when you're in combat and actually hitting abilities on top of the combat buff, you're getting 50-60% resistance. More depending on what all you're hitting. You just don't need that. So that's why this is important, even if you're a casual player, because this can allow you to not invest in certain things in your skill tree. And I mean, be honest here, if you can save that point, the points in whole plating, you can move those elsewhere. I mean, you don't have a boatload of points to work with. So every point you can save allows you to invest in something that will actually help you. And you can get this buff very easily. There's quite a few fleets that run it constantly. My fleets, the Breakfast Club, run them constantly. The Reddit fleets run them constantly. And there's many others, but many of them you don't even have to worry about the cost, because no matter what rank you are in the fleet, you get this buff as long as you're in the fleet. Now, it sucks for smaller fleets, but it makes it easy for anyone new to the game. They can just hop in a fleet that's got this up, and bam, they've got loads of resistance. They don't need to invest in resistance consoles. They don't need to invest in those skill tree points. It just saves you resources. It saves you time. And it makes the game a bit more enjoyable for you. So I hope that this video has been helpful to someone. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching.